Hey, welcome back. This week we're in the third part of a series called 3 Ways to Ruin Thanksgiving. My name is Lou, and this is Community Church Online. Well, our building here is transforming as we prepare for relaunch on January 3rd of 2021. It's been really cool to see our relaunch team put in hours every single week to really turn this place around. And we are counting down the days until we meet in person on January 3rd, and you'll get to see it all. If you're interested in joining that team, you could go over to communitychurch.net/team, and we'll send you some information about joining the relaunch team, and hopefully you can jump on board with us. Well, if you're not a regular here and you decided to take some time this week to join us online, which it seems like you did, we would love to know that you did. And if you go over to communitychurch.net/connect, there's a little form. And if you fill that out for us, we're not going to show up at your doorstep or bombard you with stuff in the mail. We just love to know we have people here. And if you do that just to say thanks, we'll send you a little gift card in the mail. Every morning, we send out something called Today's Big Idea, which is a little verse from the Bible and an explanation about what that verse means and what it means for our lives. And if you want to receive that every morning on your phone, you can download the Community Church app at your favorite app store, and then go into the settings and enable notifications under Today's Big Idea. Hit the little slider there, and you'll get it every morning on your phone. Now, if you went on your app store and you can't find the Community Church app, that's probably not your fault, that's probably our fault, because Community Church is not like the most unique name. So if you go to communitychurch.net/app, there'll be links there to all your favorite app stores. Hopefully that will send you where you need to go. Every week we've got brand new programs for kids of all ages, and those are available on our YouTube channel, but also on communitychurch.net/media. And so if you want to check those out, feel free to do that. Or if you know someone that might benefit from that, feel free to pass that along to them as well. So since this whole crazy COVID season started, we have seen some really cool things happening. We're really hearing some really great stories about what's going on in the lives of people. And now we're actually seeing some cool changes here on the property. And all of that is made possible because there are people who are supporting us financially. If you're one of those people, we are extremely, extremely grateful for you. We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing if it wasn't for you. But if you want to join that team of people who supports us financially, that group of people who support us financially, you could go over to communitychurch.net/give. But please don't feel any pressure to do that, especially if you're new. We're just glad that you decided to tune in this week. Well, things continue to be crazy and uncertain in our world right now, but hopefully we're all kind of getting used to it and making it through this challenging season of life. But like I said earlier, we are counting down the days until we can have services in person again. But until then, we're glad that you chose to join us online, and I hope that you enjoy this week's online service.
I searched the world, it couldn't fill me. A man's empty praise and treasures of faith are never enough. Then you came along and put me back together. Every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the
So this week we are in the third and final part of a series called 3 Ways to Ruin Thanksgiving. And we're not talking about the holiday Thanksgiving. We are talking about that internal feeling that we also call gratitude. So we're trying to be kind of like cute with the title here. But to start out with, what we said is that we're learning that gratitude is not just a good thing. It's not just like a nice thing to practice. It's an essential thing when it comes to our internal, our mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being. But the issue that we've run into is that we've kind of cheapened this idea of gratitude to simply saying thanks. And so if we are the kind of people that just say thanks because that's what we've been taught to do, we make a habit of it, we can even trick ourselves into thinking that we're practicing gratitude. We said that gratitude is not simply saying thanks, it's seeing the good. Not pretending everything is good, but looking at even things that are bad and trying to find the good in it. And you can tell right off the bat how that will start to change your mindset, how that could actually change what's going on internally. We said that the first thing that can ruin Thanksgiving is a mindset of what we call scarcity. The mindset of scarcity is this idea that there's just not enough, and not just not enough for survival, but not enough to thrive, not enough to be satisfied. And so we can apply the mindset of scarcity to not having enough stuff, not having enough money, not making enough progress, not being popular enough. And so it can really apply to all these different areas of life. And the big issue with scarcity is that it cannot coexist with gratitude. We can't practice both of them at the same time. We looked at the words of Jesus, and he said that he came to give life and life more abundantly, or what some translations will say, life to the full. And really, this has been the story since the start of it, right? God has been saying that he will provide, that there will be enough. One writer in the New Testament even says that we will have everything we need, God will provide everything for our enjoyment. And the issue is to constantly fall back into this feeling of scarcity, this mindset of scarcity. Well, really, maybe not, right? Maybe there won't be enough. Maybe I need to be greedy. Maybe I need to be jealous. Maybe I need to envy. Maybe I need to hoard everything I possibly can because, well, then what if there's not enough? And what if one day I'm going to look back at my life and decide that the quality of life was not enough? And so really we have a choice. We can live in fear, fear that there will not be enough for our enjoyment, or we can choose to have faith. And we didn't say it exactly that way, but really that's what it is. We can choose to have faith. We can choose to trust that God is going to provide everything that we need, that Jesus came to give life and life more abundantly. The second thing, we ran into a little bit of a problem last week, and you probably didn't realize it. You definitely didn't realize it. When we planned out this series, I decided to do 3 S's because, well, then that's easy to remember, ideally, but maybe not. And I forgot to actually call it what I was going to call it. We talked about comparison. It was supposed to be score keeping, but you could just forget that for now, or we could pretend that that's what I said. I showed you this little setup that I did between my 2 kids, Mia and Logan. I gave Mia 4 cookies, and she was really excited about that. It was this big win, big surprise way of me saying thanks for helping out with the announcements last week in the service. But then right next to her, I gave her brother a carton of ice cream, Oreo ice cream with Oreos shoved in the top of it. And all of a sudden, what went from being something that was exciting, all of a sudden was not enough. Why? Because of comparison. Because all of a sudden she was forced to keep score. And now that was a setup. I probably would have responded the same way. I'd have been what the heck? Why are you giving him so much? And whatever. But it's a really profound image of what comparison, of what scorekeeping does to our ability to practice gratitude. What starts as a win can actually be turned into a loss when we start comparing, when we start keeping score with people around us. We looked at the words of the Apostle Paul when he said, be grateful, be thankful in all circumstances. See the good in all the circumstances. But if I line my circumstances up next to yours, it's going to be impossible for me to see the good if at any point you come out higher, right? So that was way number 2, comparison or scorekeeping. Number three, that's where we are today. Okay, so relax a little bit, take a deep breath, because I have to get through all that. today, I'll start out with a little question, right? Have you ever felt unappreciated? Maybe right now you feel unappreciated. Maybe you feel unappreciated at home. Maybe you feel unappreciated at work. Maybe you feel unappreciated with your friends or your extended family. But unappreciation is not something that any of us really like to live with. It's uncomfortable. I remember one time back right after I graduated college, right after I got married, I lived actually next to my friend because we lived at the place that we worked at this children's home. And his car was parked right next to mine. And I was washing my car, and I looked at his car, and I was like, his car's dirty. I'm going to wash his car because I'm such a nice guy. So I started washing it, and then I decided I was going to wax it. So I took that like spray wax, not the crazy, like real wax, just the spray, and like made it all nice. And then I was done, and I was so excited. I just like went back into my little apartment townhouse thing and just like waited. Couldn't wait for him to come out and see how nice I had made his car. And then like hours passed, then like a day passed, then 2 days passed. He never came to me and said thanks. Like I was expecting him, and normally he was a very thankful, nice guy. Never said anything. What the heck, man, right? So I told him, hey, pal, I washed your car, and then I waxed it. It turns out he like didn't really like the car, wasn't really thrilled with it to begin with, never paid much attention to it, and actually didn't realize that it had been washed and waxed. Not being appreciated is not fun. It's not like anything that any of us want to go through. And so today we're going to look at a story about a time when Jesus was unappreciated. This is going to be like, it's going to show us the third thing that will ruin Thanksgiving, the third way we can ruin Thanksgiving. And the cool thing, the exciting thing, at least exciting to me, is the thing we're looking at today is responsible for killing more Thanksgiving than anything else. At least that's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. We are in the Gospel of Luke, which is literally the good news, according to Luke, the good news about Jesus, that is. And he records this instance. And so here's what happens. It says, now on his way to Jerusalem, which was like the holy city for the Jewish people, their favorite place in the world, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. Now, if the Jews love Jerusalem with the same amount of passion that they love Jerusalem, they hate Samaria. They don't like Samaritans. They don't like that place. No one goes there. They avoid it. Jesus is traveling along the border because he liked to push the boundaries. As he was going into a village, 10 men who had leprosy met him. They stood at a distance, and they called out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. Now, that word for pity there, it means like compassion. They're asking Jesus to feel for them. These lepers back then, people who had leprosy, they stood at a distance. They were the original social distancers. They were doing it before anybody else was doing it. And the reason why is because leprosy was a word for a bunch of different contagious skin diseases. We have leprosy today, but it's way more like specific and refined, and we have treatment. They didn't have treatment, and it just included a bunch of different things. The life of a leper was really, really sad. They couldn't be around their family. They couldn't be around friends. They couldn't go to work. They couldn't go to church. Like they had like synagogue back then. They couldn't be part of community life because they always had to be away from everybody. In fact, whenever they entered a place where there were other people who didn't have leprosy, they'd often have to like ring a bell and announce that an unclean person had just entered the area. And so their life was just so sad and humiliating. And they're asking Jesus to have some compassion. And not surprisingly, he does. It says, when he saw them, he said, go, show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Now, when he says priests, he's not talking about like the Catholic priests down the block. He's talking about the Levites, who were the priests in the Jewish world back then. And in their Old Testament law, the law that they lived by, after you had been healed, after you were healed from some sickness or whatever, you basically went to the priest and he gave you the A-OK, like you're good now to continue back in community life. These lepers like never really got over their issue, so they wouldn't have been planning to go to the priest. Jesus is implying that they are going to be healed, and sure enough, on their way as they're walking, they were healed. It says one of them, when he saw he was healed, that's like I wonder what that was like, just like walking all of a sudden, bam, or maybe it like faded away slowly. I don't know. He came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. This was like the person that the Jewish people, the people who had been reading Luke's words, the people that followed Jesus. They hated Samaritans. And yet this is the guy that came back and thanked Jesus. Jesus asked, were not all 10 cleansed? He knew. Where are the other 9? Has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? Then he said to him, rise and go. Your faith has made you well. Now, there's a bunch of different things we can take about gratitude from this situation. And the first thing that we can learn from this story is that gratitude is not natural. Gratitude does not come naturally. Now, you might push back a little bit and be like, hold on a second. If you give me something, I'll say thank you. Like if I came up to you and gave you a cookie, right? Because that's what I do when I come up to people. You're going to say thank you, probably. Why? Because you've been taught to say thank you. However, like we said a few weeks ago, gratitude is not simply saying thanks. Jesus healed different people in a bunch of different ways, right? Some people touched him. He touched some people. He put his eyes on some people, some hands on some people. Some people he just spoke to. These people, he sends them away and has them realize their healing while they're apart from them. And it's to make a profound point. If they had been healed right in front of him, they probably would have said gee, thanks. You're the reason why I'm healed. I realize that. And so since you're right here, I'll say thank you, right? But it takes work to stop, turn around, and walk back to express gratitude. Gratitude takes work, and it doesn't come naturally to us. Think about this. When is the last time you said thank you? Probably today at some point, depending on how early it is in the day. You probably said thank you, right? Because saying thanks comes naturally. But when is the last time you intentionally stopped and thought about what you have and where it came from, and then went and expressed gratitude to the sources of whatever you're grateful for, right? Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your friends, maybe it's your coworkers, your boss, your employees, whatever, whatever it is you're grateful for. When is the last time, not just that we sat and thought about it, but thought about where it came from and who deserves to receive our gratitude? That is not something that comes natural, at least doesn't come naturally to me. So gratitude is unnatural. Because it's unnatural, it's also uncommon, right? It's pretty obvious there's one guy out of the 10 that comes back to say thank you. And it's not because he got more than everybody else. It's because he took the step to do it and nobody else was willing to do that. Now, that might be helpful, but there's something else more important going on in the story here. If you notice, Jesus asks a really interesting question. He says, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Actually, he asks 3 questions. The third one, he says, has no one returned to give praise to God except this foreigner? So there are a couple of conclusions you can draw from this, right? Some people would say that, well, Jesus is claiming to be God. So going back to him to say thanks is going to God and saying thanks. And while that may be true, I think that there's something else going on here. Think about this. The guys were on their way to the priests, to some kind of religious establishment. And so it's interesting that Jesus implies that they are not grateful to God. They could say a prayer on the way over there or say a prayer when they get there. So how could Jesus say that they weren't expressing their gratitude to God? The point that Jesus is making here is really, really interesting. And it's a point that he's made about things like love. What he's saying is that we express gratitude to God by expressing gratitude to people, right? Vertical gratitude is shown in horizontal gratitude. And I would argue that the reverse is true, right? It's really hard to say that we're genuinely grateful to God if we're not expressing gratitude to the people around us. He says the same thing about love, right? And sort of the other New Testament writers say over and over and over again, how could you say you love God if you don't show that by loving other people? When Jesus is asked what the most important commandment is, he says, love God, right? And then he says, and the second is like it, love people. They didn't ask him for 2, they asked him for 1, right? And he's saying the 2 are the same. You will express your love for God by showing that in love for other people. And so, the third way to ruin Thanksgiving is in practicing silence. Silence. The power of gratitude is in expression. Remember I asked you earlier, have you ever felt unappreciated? Why? Why did you feel unappreciated? Was it that the person didn't feel grateful? Maybe, but maybe not. In fact, oftentimes if you ever have a confrontation about like someone not being appreciative, oftentimes what you find out is that no, they feel very appreciative. The reason that you and I don't feel appreciated most often when we don't feel appreciated is not because the gratitude isn't felt. It's because the gratitude is not expressed. When we are silent about the way that we feel, we will not experience the power of gratitude. The power of gratitude is in expression. There's a book called the Book of Psalms. You might be familiar with it. They're basically just ancient songs. And in Psalm 100, it's all about gratitude, but they're all expressions of gratitude. It says like, give thanks to the Lord. It talks about making a joyful noise. It talks about singing. It talks about like coming into a certain place or going someplace. It's all these different like action words about expressing gratitude. Gratitude is something that has to be expressed. Think about it like this, right? Like if it's a text message, we could say that a message unsent is a message unreceived. And in the same way, we can say that gratitude unexpressed is gratitude unreceived. I heard one pastor say that unexpressed, like unspoken gratitude will always be received as ingratitude. A lot of times, like the conflict in our lives, like the relational struggle that we experience, like happens because not necessarily because we don't feel grateful for something someone has done for us or something somebody is doing for us, but it happens because we don't express the way that we feel. Gratitude unexpressed is gratitude unreceived. So I used to work on the North Shore at this church called Three Village Church. And at our staff meetings, whenever someone's birthday was coming up, we would all go around in a circle and we would say something that we appreciate about the person whose birthday it was. And to be honest, like at first, I was not a huge fan of this. I thought it was like kind of awkward, felt like a gigantic encouragement circle. And so some of us would kind of joke around about how corny it was. But every time it was my birthday, I was blown away by the things that people pointed out about me. And I found the same to be true about everybody else on staff. Like they were always surprised by the things that everybody around them really appreciated. And the reason why is because it's unnatural. Most of us are not quick to see something we appreciate in someone and then let them know about it. But think about how powerful it is when you do, or if someone's done that to you, like somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I got to let you know that you said this and it meant so much to me, or you did this and it meant so much to me. I really appreciate this. Like it has the ability to totally change like the trajectory of your day when somebody expresses gratitude because it is so powerful, but it is so unnatural and it is so uncommon. And like in those little encouragement circles that we did, right? That at first I thought were a little corny. What was amazing to see is what people appreciate about each other and how unaware they were that those things about them were appreciated. And I'm willing to bet that the same is true for you and the people in your life. Think about this. Who are the people? Who is, let's say one person, who is the person in your life that you appreciate the most? Who's given you the most? Who has poured into you, who has changed your life like for the better the most? What if they have no idea how you feel about them? What if they have no idea how much you appreciate them? What a tragedy that would be if they went their entire lives without knowing the level of impact they've had on you. And like, sadly enough, that happens all the time. I'm willing to bet that the people in your life that you are closest to have no idea how much you appreciate them. They have no idea, like, the things that you appreciate them, or at least, like, not to the extent that you appreciate them. Like, to you, it's obvious. To you, you know, oh, they're just the best. They're super patient. They're super fun. They're super encouraging. They're super smart. Like all these things you appreciate about them, but you might be shocked to know that they have no idea you feel that way. And so what if we decided to not let silence ruin Thanksgiving? What if we decided to be intentional? Like, even if it was a little bit awkward, even if we have to like overcome a little bit of like emotional constipation, right? But what if we like went out there and decided we weren't going to let the people around us wonder whether or not we appreciate them? So last week I mentioned my grandfather, this guy who at the end of his life was extremely grateful for the things that he had. Well, I remember his funeral and the time surrounding his funeral. My family kind of came in from out of town, and we just spent hours and hours together talking about him, about things he did, things that he said, like these weird little habits he had. Like, he never called any of us by our first name. Like, he just had his own made-up name for each and every one of us. He just called me, like, the turkey, which I don't really even know what he meant by that. But anyway, we spent hours talking about the things that we appreciated about him. And it was amazing. It was fun. We laughed. We cried. But then I had this really, really uncomfortable thought. As we sat there and shared like everything we loved so much about him, the question crossed my mind: what if he didn't know this? Like, what if he didn't know how deeply appreciated he was by the people in his life? What if he didn't know the kind of impact that he made on the people around him? Like, what a sad story that would be. And so that question stuck with me. It stuck with me for a while. And you know what? I think, like, thankfully, I think he did have a pretty good idea of how much he was loved, about how appreciated he was. But that question also helped me to realize that there are people in my life right now, today, that I love and appreciate, that may not know how much I love and appreciate them. And I have the opportunity. I have the choice. I have the ability to decide today that our lives won't end without them knowing how much I appreciate them. And so that's my question for you. Like, that's the challenge I have for you this Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving right now, it's been like a little bit overrun by Black Friday, especially with all the sales now going into the night of Thanksgiving. And like, we have one day a year where we're like, all right, let's make sure we get the gratitude thing right this year. And we're like, nah, let's shop, right? But Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving's coming up. What I would challenge you to do this Thanksgiving is to think about the people in your life that you are grateful for, and to decide that they won't have to wonder if you appreciate them, and they will know the things that you appreciate about them. It might be a little bit awkward, it might be a little uncomfortable, and so maybe, what if you just like got away and you took like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, but you took some time to write a letter, like sit down and list out the things that you appreciate about these people. And then what if you gave it to them? What if you gave it to them on Thanksgiving, or you gave it to them on Christmas? I guarantee you, you will never regret the time that you spend doing that. And so what if we decided that we would express our gratitude to God by expressing our gratitude to people? What if we decided this year, that we would not let silence ruin Thanksgiving? Well, thanks for being with us this week. And from everybody here at Community Church, we are grateful for you, and we hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.